At least it's you guys. Say hello.
For half the crowd.
There.
Are we knowing that you're doing this?
Right.
Okay, here we go.
Hello, Crash.
Got what I was after.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Eric Wood.
Just one more
Ernest
second
Wood.
here.
Ernest.
Ernest Wood. What are you doing?
That.
Okay, so on the death of Joshua Norton, Ernest Whitsey wrote, "There have been other emperors in the history of this world of ours who have been out of their minds. Their reigns were marked by violence and atrocity, but ours was none of these. Clarity toward all, loving kindness, and benevolence were all in his heart. Let it not ever be able to be said that in the hearts and imaginations of San Franciscans for generations to come, our merchant prince turned royal pauper, His Gracious Highness Norton I, nor it ever be uttered, our emperor is dead."
Ah.
Long live the emperor.
This is my great niece. This is the fourth generation.
Yep.
Wow.
So the story doesn't end there. What happened was my father died in 2001. So generation, and decades passed, but he still promoted Norton. The last time he promoted was 1995, because again there was a rise of intolerance, and we thought that the rise of intolerance should be countered by a symbol of San Francisco that was anti-hate. And Norton is still the best example of that in the founding of the city. But he died in 2001 on January 3rd. 2 years into that, after his death, friends of mine got together and I told them the story of Emperor Norton. They said, oh, we got to do a plaza up on Peter Macchiarini steps, because the steps were named after my father, where he lived in 1930s on those steps, and he had his first studio up there, right? So the steps were named after him in 1998. And so they said, well, let's do a plaza. So my friend, who is a landscape architect, Alex Calder, designed a possible plaza on the top of the Peter Macchiarini steps. The plaza is pretty cool because it has sculptures. These two sculptures are covered in
Everybody say hello. Bye, Julia.
So these two sculptures here are actually my sculptures. And I asked, before my father died, I asked, hey Dad, why didn't you did the Emperor, why didn't you do the two dogs that tagged along with the Emperor? And he said, I don't have time, you do it. And I said, okay, but you have to critique them. So that they have some kind of relationship with sculpture, which is very modern. And there's something I forgot to say about the sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
Norton sometimes walked around with a sword because he was the emperor. My father, because of the militarization of the period, took the sword out of his hand and put an umbrella in here to protect him. Right? And so I wanted these two sculptures to like have that kind of same feel to it with Bummer and Lazarus. And while the emperor on occasion will be compared to the dog in terms of begging by various functions, he kind of disavowed the dog. The emperor did. The emperor doesn't. These are not my dogs, right? But when Lazarus was kicked to death by a drunk miner coming out of the saloon one night, Norton held a public funeral for Lazarus. Animal rights. Unheard of. Okay. So when he died, there was a proposal to do this. This was unfortunately stopped by a handful of curmudgeons up on that hill who didn't want to have this plaza done. However, we had a website with this on it. And the website sat there for years. And one day, I got a call from this guy, Johnny Riegling. And he said, you know, we've just bought the San Francisco Brewing Company down on Columbus Avenue, and we're converting it back into the Comstock Saloon. And I came across your website with Emperor Norton on it, and it's a fantastic statue. Would you like to put it up? Right? And dropped the phone out of my hand. I said, Johnny, you don't know what you're saying. You want to buy a edition of this, right? And I said, well, there's a couple of editions. You could have it with the original one was with the Union private's hat, or you could have it with the stovetop hat. My father actually designed one with a stovetop and Lincoln cap on it, right? And there's images of these in there. So we went back and forth and we negotiated, and they didn't want a huge big one, but they wanted one that was 4 feet tall, right? To the top of the bar, and it's way up on the top of the bar. It's the only statue of Emperor Norton that exists in this city, which is crazy. But anyway, we were able to take, that is the maquette you're sitting right there. That is the maquette based upon this statue of the Emperor.
Sorry.
And that one, when we took this statue and we scanned it, worked with Artworks Foundry, and we blew it up into a styrofoam maquette. And even then, my daughter and I had to correct certain parts. You can see certain elements that flaked off of it over the years, but we actually had to correct parts of it that were not right in relationship to what the computer did. So that one was cast based upon the attempt to put it up really big. All right, and that is the only statue inside in San Francisco, and it's hollow inside. And so I took one of my father's last graves and I put it up inside the statue, and that's what's at the Comstock right now. It's really cool.
And they put it there when it was the San Francisco Brewing Company?
Yeah, it was the San Francisco Brewing Company, and it turned into the Comstock Saloon, which is an amazing saloon. When it reopens, you can go down there. They have live entertainment. It's a very cool saloon. It's a block below Vesuvius, and it's a cool place to see.
Yeah.
But that's not the end of the story. A month ago, I was approached by some folks that are just moved into the neighborhood up there, and they're talking about putting a plaza on the top of the Macchiarini steps. And I said, oh, really? And I sent them an email. I said, we got a design for that, you know? So it's now kind of being talked about, which is kind of cool to get it up there. But that's not even the end of the story. Jean Lumia, who is a friend of mine, had headed up the Emperor's Bridge campaign for years, trying to get the Bay Bridge renamed after Emperor Norton because he was the one who conceived it, right? So he's doing all this research on Emperor Norton. And it turned out he came across this documents that showed where Emperor Norton lived when he declared himself Emperor of the United States. And it's on the Peter Macchiarini steps on Kearny Street. And it could actually be the same, it's halfway up the block. We can't, because of the 1906 earthquake and what have you, can't figure out exactly the same, but it's very close to where my father lived in the 1930s. So this circular reality has come around about this statue and about my father and about the Emperor. There's something going on there. It's almost mystical. All right? And that's the story of our beloved Emperor.
Woo!
So where does this, do you know where this comes from? You know where this comes from? Here's another quick story. That place there, you know where that is, where Pink Blossom is? That was called the place. That is actually where, and we'll have another story, another first story, that's Ginsburg.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Cool.
The place. You can Google it up online and check it out. On that corner, where that place was there, that was Furley Getty's first bookstore.
That right there?
In North, in 1950, before he moved down to Columbus Avenue.
I thought it was a jazz thing.
From was that every time they got together in this place, there were neighbors upstairs who didn't like to hear a lot of noise. They would call the police on them. And there was one cop that was particularly into beating on poets and beats, literally beating on them. And so they evolved a way of applauding
Ah,
that didn't make that much noise.
nice.
So that's very North End.
That's a very, very, very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
You what's your that bonito you want here?
We're gonna put this up online, right?
Yeah, we are.
Rahul? You're gonna edit
Oh,
it.